Two big ideas. The world will reach an apocalyptic end at Judgment Day, and nature exists to serve humanity. Both have been blamed for making religious people careless about the environment. To help us get to the bottom of this, Stephen Sharper is a professor at the University of Toronto's School of the Environment. He's a Christian eco-theologian. His latest book is For Earth's Sake. And Justin Trottier, Canada's most vocal atheist. He directs the Centre for Inquiry's Toronto office, and he ran as a candidate for the Ontario Green Party. Welcome to you both. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Okay, Justin, I want to start with you because you do believe secular humanism would be better for the environment than the Christianity I wear so comfortably. Why?
Well, it really depends who you're talking to as far as religious representation. Look at James Watt. Watt was the Reagan Secretary of the Interior, and he famously said that we shouldn't care too much about, in this case, it was resource extraction they were debating public policy on because he wasn't sure how much more time would pass before Jesus would return and save us from ourselves.
He did say that, but he said that quote has been taken a little out of context, because when you look at the full length of his quote, because I did check into it, because I was shocked that an interior minister would talk about Jesus returning, but that is, he says, until then, let's use every resource responsibly.
Did he say responsibly?
He did, but it's...
Surveys do support that folks who are, like him, Pentecostal and other traditions within Christianity that are more on the dominionist side of things. And that's where I think a lot of it comes down to is, are you a dominionist and you see creation as something that God's given you to do with as you please, or are you more of the stewardship mentality, where you see creation as something that you need to protect?
Stephen, you are the theologian. You're also the environment professor for us. This is a Christian theology, that we should have dominion, that the human species is superior over all others. How does that feed into environmental care?
Well, it feeds in many ways, and obviously, when one talks about Christianity or religion, we're talking about a whole bundle, a whole raft of ideas, traditions, etc. And the interpretation of creation is one of the most contested now. Earlier in the show, I think you might have flashed a quote from the Lynn White Jr. article, The Historical Roots of Our Ecologic Crisis. And basically, Lynn White, a cultural historian, says Christianity has been the most anthropocentric religion the world has ever known, in the sense it focuses on human salvation to the detriment of other creatures and creation as a whole. But this is being radically rethought since 1967. And now dominion is seen as a stewardship model. And one of the leading theologians on this is a Canadian, Douglas John Hall from McGill University, who wrote a book called Dominion as Stewardship. He looks at the original text and talks about how this meant a kind of caretaking, a kind of serving of the garden, even in the Garden of Eden. One of the first commands to the human is to serve the garden. So some have interpreted this as conservancy, or serving together, a kind of conservationist ethic. For example, a member of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Sir John Houghton, is a Pentecostal Christian. And as a scientist, he sees climate change. And one time at a meeting at Oxford, he was with Richard Cizik, who at that time had a leadership position.
With the evangelicals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they had a little walk in the garden. And Sir John Houghton said, this is not propaganda. This is not an Al Gore-inspired conspiracy theory. This is real. And I'm speaking to you not only as a scientist, but as a fellow Christian.
Okay. I want to talk about some of the things we can do for what this is real. Stephen, you challenged me because do you still not drive a car?
That's right.
You guys gave up your car as a family.
Yes.
That works in the busy city of Toronto because we've got great TTC here. How?
Well, that's an interesting story because my wife and I had bought a house in downtown Toronto many years ago, and we had this leased vehicle we'd been transferring back to Canada from the United States. And I said, why continue this lease? We don't need this. We're in downtown Toronto, we have the TTC, et cetera. And my wife looked at me, and she's given me permission to say this. She looked at me as if I just said, let's go fill up the bathtub and hold our 2-year-old under for as long as possible, see if the bubbles, kind of really make us excited. I mean, it was like, what? Give up the car? Yeah. How could we do that? And we agreed, after many tea-laden conversations, to give it up on a trial basis for 6 months. But after 1 month, my wife turns to me and says, this is great. I don't want to go back. We knew that we'd save money. It turned out about $9,000 a year. We also knew that it'd be better for the environment in terms of emissions. But we hadn't seen the positive silver linings. This led to greater family bonding.
Yeah, you call this an ethic of love that's taking over environmentalism. The politicization is leaving and an ethic of love is moving in. Okay, I want to just ask, because we do have a studio audience guest here who's with an environmental movement called Arosha. Do we all have to give up our car? Are there other things that aren't quite so drastic that we can do?
We have to be more mindful, I think, of what we're doing and not just going through the motions of life. And for me as a Christian, I think we have to address life mindfully and prayerfully. And that means every single bit of, not like being, weighted down by it, but, and that may mean using it sometimes and not using it other times.
Okay. Justin, you ran for the Green Party and you, I loved it that Elizabeth May, your leader, models to us when she goes to church, she walks because she wants those of us that are faith-minded to do similar, to walk to church. Do you do anything that's really been stretching you? Maybe not like giving up your car, but have you got any advice for us on acts of random unselfishness for the environment?
Well, I mean, one of the things we talked about in meetings of Green Party candidates is how do you make the the movement towards environmental concern something that is not going to be difficult for people. It's something that can be easily done without having too negative an effect on one's quality of life. And I think what we came to as a consensus was that you need to move people slowly in that direction. Taking away their car right off the bat is not the right way to do it. So what I've tried to do is minimize my use of my vehicle, move to use the transit as much as I can. I still do use a car, I'm ashamed to admit, when I need to. But what I've noticed is that, it's not just good for the environment. It saves me money. It's nice to be out of a vehicle. You're not in traffic jams, for example. And I do other things, use my appliances at off-peak hours and stuff of that kind. And again, it saves you money and it changes your routine a little bit. So I think there are other perks. And if you can sell environmentalism as something that isn't only good for the environment, as important as that is, I'm quite cognizant that there are other motives that cause people to make decisions, then I think you'll have more traction.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin Trottier. Thank you, Stephen Sharper. Great to have you both on. And now we want to know what you think. Should people of faith take the lead in addressing environmental concerns? Join the conversation. Send your answer on that by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter. And our studio audience is taking a live vote right now, and we'll have those results when we come back. Coming up, a heart and soul check on your place in nature as we visit with Eugene Peterson, an internationally known poet, spiritual guide, and pastor who's passionate about both nature and nature's God.